Hey, we're Broken World Entertainment, and a long time ago in a galaxy not that far away, we of course were meant to have a very different take for Star Wars Episode 9. That was meant to come from director Colin Trevorrow, but of course that all fell apart. They got rid of him and they brought back J.J. Abrams. Now, we ended up seeing a lot from what his idea for that movie was going to be, and a lot of people went, damn, that's the movie we should have got. Well, we have a lot more detail right now on this movie that was going to officially be called Star Wars Duel of the Fates. And we get what the opening crawl was, we get what the mission was going to be, we get what Rey's new weapon was going to be, the return to Coruscant, what was hunting Kylo Ren on Mustafar, and all this type of stuff. So we're going to have a look at it because it's interesting. And look, it still would have had the uphill battle coming off of the disaster that obviously was The Last Jedi, and of course the disaster that was Solo, A Star Wars Story. But this sounded so much better. It looked so much better when we see those concept art designs. It looked so much darker, and of course it looked and sounded Star Wars, and that's the one thing Kathleen Kennedy did not want. So it's saying here, Colin Trevorrow's Episode 9 would have been titled Duel of the Fates, and that's seemingly a reference to the iconic piece of music that played over the battle between Obi-Wan, Qui-Gon Jinn, and Darth Maul in The Phantom Menace. The opening crawl, meanwhile, was set to read as follows. So we have what the crawl was going to read, which was, the iron grip of the First Order has spread to the furthest reaches of the galaxy. Only a few scattered planets remain unoccupied. Treacherous acts are punishable by death. Determined to suffocate a growing unrest, Supreme Leader Kylo Ren has silenced all communication between neighboring systems. Led by General Leia Organa, the Resistance has planned a secret mission to prevent their annihilation and forge a path to freedom. So that's what the crawl was going to read. Now, obviously, there might have been a bit more because it does seem a bit short, but that's what the main part of the crawl was going to read. So we do have confirmation that it was going to be Supreme Leader Kylo Ren, that Leia, of course, was still meant to be a part of it. And this was probably written, of course, before Carrie Fisher's passing, because Colin Trevorrow was supposed to still direct at that stage. So what was the mission? It was a daring mission, apparently. So from there, the action would have kicked off at the QWAT, I think it's, I have no idea how you pronounce it, shipyards, where Rose Tico, boo, and BB-8 were attempting to infiltrate one of the First Order ship factories in an effort to deliver another blow on behalf of the Resistance. Finn and Poe also would have been present, and their plan involved destroying a power shift supplying raw ore to the factory from the orbit ring above the moon they're on. Unfortunately, things go wrong and the First Order is able to contain the blast. A character named Admiral Vaughn dismisses the Resistance tactics as pitiful, but the tide soon turns in their favor. So Rey's new weapon. Disguised as a Tusken Raider, Rey reveals her new weapon, a double-bladed lightsaber that's a hybrid of her staff and Luke Skywalker's blade, the one destroyed in The Last Jedi, which somehow she had back in Rise of Skywalker. A battle ensues and our heroes manage to escape with a Star Destroyer. It's then that the Knife 9, whatever that is, a ship carrying the Knights of Ren, arrives. Fair enough, that's what it is. Rather than being sidelined, we'd have seen what they're capable of when one of them kills the Admiral for his failure. So obviously we'd have gotten a lot more of the Knights of Ren and we'd have seen how ruthless they are. By the way, I am curious, how did 4 people on their own manage to steal a fucking Star Destroyer? That part's a bit weird. So the return to Coruscant. The one vibrant city now looks very different as the planet has become a stronghold for the First Order. General Hux is now Chancellor Hux, and the traitor who helped the Resistance steal that Star Destroyer is executed before him. So He then meets with other members of the First Order and a variety of alien warlords who are all too aware that there's a last Jedi making problems in the galaxy. The Council demands to know the location of Supreme Leader Kylo Ren, but all Hux can say is that he's off searching for something of great power that will help them. Oh, and at this point, we'd have also learned that Captain Phasma survived. Alright, that part's a bit stupid. Like, how does this bitch keep surviving? She was on a planet that exploded and somehow she survived and was in the next movie. To then have her get shot and thrown down a shaft of a ship that explodes. How could you possibly have her survive again? By the way, what they did with Hux after the first movie was just like, good God. Like, to make him the butt of the jokes in Last Jedi was like terrible. But what then haunted Kylo Ren on Mustafar. So Kylo Ren, who now has stubble and looks a little worse for wear, is alone on Mustafar, except for a droid that's said to be similar to Darth Maul in appearance. Okay, that's weird. And haunted by the Force ghost of his uncle, Luke Skywalker. They argue back and forth about Ren's path, leading him to little more than an empty tomb, but the villain vows to become more powerful than any Jedi. It's then that he finds a Sith holocron, which reveals a message from Emperor Palpatine. It was meant for Darth Vader as a contingency in case Luke killed him. We learned that Vader was to take Luke to see Tor Valum, whoever that is, a Sith Master and Darth Plagueis' teacher. However, after the holocron scans Kylo and realizes he's not Vader, it releases red lightning and explodes, burning his face. So we were meant to get a bit of Palpatine, but it was a message, so that was fine. Luke haunting Kylo, we heard those plans a while ago, even though originally it was supposed to be that Anakin would appear to Luke as Anakin, but then get pulled away and appear to Kylo as Vader. And you found out that he was still having the battle between good and evil, which is an interesting concept, but at the same time it undoes everything Return of the Jedi does, I feel. So Rey still wants to save Kylo Ren, so back at the Resistance base, everyone is shocked to see a Star Destroyer land on the planet. And there's a funny moment with Rey using a Jedi mind trick on officers who were still on board. Talking to Finn, she admits that she's not sure she has what it takes to be a Jedi, especially when so many people have such high expectations of her. Talk turns to Kylo Ren, and she's unable to explain their connection after telling Finn about nightmares she's been having about him. He believes that Rey should shut him out as he can't change, though the Jedi reminds him that Finn is proof that it's never too late to become a different person. A plan starts to form. That Star Destroyer could help turn the tide for the Resistance, as it still has most of its weapons. They just need an army to use it. Rey, meanwhile, has been studying the Jedi texts from Arc 2 and discovers that there's a communication system called a Force beacon beneath the Jedi Temple in Coruscant that could be used to reach out to allies across the galaxy. The kicker is that the First Order will be powerless to stop it, as it predates everything Empire technology. Rey gets angry. Luke also appears as a Force ghost to Rey, and just as he's pushing Kylo Ren to embrace Ben Solo, he's pushing Rey to get stronger. Kylo, meanwhile, has had smelted Mandalorian armor applied to his face to cover his scars and proceed to belittle Hux before ordering him to deal with the Resistance while he takes care of Rey. Rey asks Luke what it means for there to be balance in the Force, as the dark suffocates the light. Light extinguishes the dark. Over and over and over again. She's clearly doubting herself, and Luke can sense that she's angry. Their exchange boils down to him trying to convince her to remain on the path she's on and not give up on the Force or becoming a Jedi. And the story takes shape. One team, Rose, Finn, R2-D2 and C-3PO, head to Coruscant to light the beacon, while another, Rey, Poe and Chewbacca, are travelling to a planet where Rey is looking for someone to help her figure out what she should do. Before Rey leaves, she tells Leia, who remains at the base overseeing the Resistance, that she believes there's still good in Kylo Ren, something even his mother doubts. All Leia wants Rey to know is that her story is her own and that she shouldn't let anyone, including Luke, tell her what to be. Vader's mask is destroyed, which it already was, but okay. Kylo Ren fully seems to be embracing the dark side at this point, taking Darth Vader's mask and saying he finally understands him now. You allowed love to cloud your judgment. He proceeds to take his grandfather's helmet and throw it from the balcony, shattering it. War is waged in the galaxy. Things start to get a little vague at this point, but the First Order tracks down its stolen Star Destroyer and the Resistance is forced to go on the run. The first team manages to turn on the beacon in the Jedi Temple, and we then see people around the galaxy receiving the signal, including Bossick? I have no idea who the hell even is that. The second team, meanwhile, is being pursued by the Knights of Ren to the planet called Bonaden. Kylo meets Tor Valum, or however you pronounce it, I don't even know. Kylo Ren arrives on Remenkor and comes face to face with Tor Valum. He's an alien of unknown origin who is 7,000 years old and said to be very Lovecraftian in appearance. Kylo begins training with him, and in a throwback to the Empire Strikes Back's cave scene, Ren comes face to face with Darth Vader and loses what is described as a brutal battle between them. Poe, meanwhile, has taken Rey to a seer who is able to pull information from her memories, including a star chart of some sort from her visions with Kylo Ren. The Knights then show up, and a lightsaber battle ensues in which Rey is ultimately victorious. Throughout the film, they'd have been taken out by her. So it sounds like they'd be one by one in different parts getting taken out. As for that Lovecraftian thing, that's that weird big alien in the images that we've seen as well, and like the lake type thing. So pieces start falling into place. Eventually, Rey and Kylo Ren arrive on Mortis, while Leia recruits Lando to organize the smugglers and take the fight to the First Order. Rose, who apparently had a much larger role in this film, is captured and tortured by the villains, but makes her escape and rejoins her friends. Finn, alongside R2 and 3PO, manages to start a citizens' uprising on the ground on Coruscant, and even recruits some of his fellow stormtroopers. It's around this point that Hux takes his own life with one of the many lightsabers he's collected from fallen Jedi, while those Finn found hiding in the Jedi Temple make use of old tech to take the fight to the First Order and finally end their reign. Leia also brings her forces to Coruscant for the final battle with the First Order, and fights ensue both on the ground and in the sky. Chewbacca ends up flying an X-Wing, while back on Mortis, Rey and Kylo are squaring off in a battle that's seen him become more powerful than any Sith before him, and he can now absorb the life energy of others. You're starting to hear a lot of the stuff that they stole, and that's what they did because they rejected Colin Trevorrow's script. So you're hearing he's able to absorb life force. What happened? Palpatine started doing that. So they clearly still took a lot of Trevorrow's ideas and bastardized them in that garbage fest that we got of a movie. So the final battle begins. During the final fight, Ren even reveals that he killed Rey's parents at the behest of Supreme Leader Snoke before the Force ghosts of Luke, Obi-Wan Kenobi and Yoda ultimately appear to try and bring him back from the edge. That comes after he blinds Rey, and while she's ultimately slain, it's Leia who gets through to her son and convinces him to bring her back. He does so at the cost of his own life, and her fate is left unknown to her friends. At the same time, Rey realizes that she must find balance in the Force between the light and dark, and as embracing both is the only way to move forward. However, we later find Rey Solana. Ben reveals her name as he dies, so that's her full name, I guess, Rey Solana, on a planet called Modest, or something like that, where she's fully healed and training a new generation of Jedi alongside Finn and Rose, who are now a romantic couple. The Resistance, meanwhile, finally won, restoring hope to the galaxy. So you're hearing what the overall story was meant to be, how it was going to go and stuff. And by the end, you're starting to hear how much of Colin Trevorrow's story was taken and given to J.J. Abrams for him to do what he did. Like, half the battles sound familiar. The fact that the Jedis would show up and still be these voices. That happened. The fact that Leia reached out and called Ben back, and we still pretty much got that in the other film. It's just that the ending, by the way, sounds terrible, but the rest of it sounds pretty good and stuff. But overall, I think this would have been the better movie to have, rather than the absolute garbage fest that we ended up being given. And the fact that we now hear that so much of his ideas were taken and made completely stupidly through JJ's take. Yeah, we should have had this movie. And if we didn't get that movie, then JJ probably should have directed all three. Instead, they did the stupid thing of, we'll hire different people. They let Colin Trevorrow do whatever, or not Colin Trevorrow, Rian Johnson do whatever the hell he wanted, which was to completely ignore and abandon everything set up in the first movie, only for JJ then to be brought back because they fired Trevorrow because his script didn't line up with everything that was in bloody The Last Jedi, and we got the abomination of the Disney trilogy. So what do you guys think? Would you have preferred to have seen that version of the movie, or are you happy enough with what you got, or do you think it all sounds terrible, or do you think it was all going to be great? Let me know. And with that, I shall leave it there for this one. So do like, share, subscribe and all that good stuff. Cheers. Catch you in the next one.